They were a non-competitive mess. And while baseball, Tiki, is a weird sport, it's a funny sport. I have a very tough time, even with 22 hours to let it marinate, to come out here and give you false hope. I am worried. I am concerned. And this season right now feels like it's on the precipice of taking a U-turn that nobody saw coming.
Yes, and the biggest issue that I had going into this weekend was that the New York Mets are relying on some of these young players. Ronnie Mauricio, Mark Vientos was back up, Brett Beatty, to be these catalysts, and they're just not ready for it. And I'm not saying the Steelers, the Pirates they played above themselves or whatever it was. I think the Mets they played terribly offensively. Their pitching was terrible. But you put pressure on young players, sometimes they rise to the occasion. But a lot of times, and most times, they just crack under it. And that's exactly what happened. All last week, we kept talking, Vientos. He's going to come back.
He was terrible.
He's got to be that guy that we saw at the end of the regular season last season and in the postseason for the Mets. He's got to be that guy. 1 for 13, right? Whatever it was. And look, he hit the ball hard, but that doesn't matter. You got to be productive, and you can't trust young players to do that all the time.
How about veteran players? How about Francisco Lindor, who did nothing in this series?
Right. What was he, 1 for 14?
How about him? He's done nothing during this stretch. This is a collective failure. This is everybody. This is the veterans. These are the young players. This is the starting pitching. This is the bullpen. And I think that's what really concerns me. Because over the years of watching baseball, when a team is playing really well or when a team is really struggling, it's baseball. It's a streaky sport.
Yep.
Right now, during this stretch, this hell stretch the Mets have gone through, that began on Friday, June 13th, an innocuous Friday night game against the Tampa Bay Rays, they're awful at everything. They're not close. Like, this isn't one of those scenarios where you say, losing a lot of close games, get a couple of big hits, things would change. Hey, instead of being 3-15, they could easily be, 5-11 or whatever the number is. I can't do math right now. They're not close. They're not. They weren't close on Friday. They weren't close on Saturday. They were reasonably close on Saturday when their bullpen somehow kept them in the game after the Paul Blackburn rain-delayed disaster. And yet the offense, and it's everybody, not just the bottom of the order and the young guys you're talking about, they're all failing. And so it's tough right now to imagine that all of this is just going to turn instantly because the calendar is turning to July 1st.
Yeah, well, I mean, maybe the bats. Maybe the bats somehow just wake themselves up.
What sign have you seen, Tiki, that's happening?
Not one at all. Not one iota. Not from Francisco Lindor. Maybe Juan Soto, because he continues to be amazing in June.
Before you continue, let me address Juan Soto.
Go ahead.
And I don't want anyone to take this as I'm blaming this on Juan Soto. I just like to give facts. I'm a big facts guy. As Juan Soto is chasing the greatest OPS in a single month in New York Mets history, I had a thought in my brain, which is, has he gotten big hits here this month? Like, what's his numbers with runners in scoring position? We all know that he's had a bad season with runners in scoring position. Like, that's easy to find. That graphic's put up on SNY all the time. You can go to Baseball Reference. You see it. He's at 160 with runners in scoring position.
Yep.
So I wanted to know deep in my soul, what is he doing with runners in scoring position in this historic month of June? Couldn't find the stat anywhere, Teak, so I had to do it myself. Like a lot of things. I went through my scorebook. I went through every plate appearance Juan Soto has had with runners in scoring position in the month of June.
Quick question. Couldn't the internet just do it for you?
No, I searched. Couldn't find it.
AI couldn't do it for you?
Nope, couldn't find it.
So you literally had to go through your scorebook.
Sometimes you can't send a boy to do a man's job. And right now, AI on the internet is a boy.
Yeah, and it sucks.
And I'm a man. So I wanted the information. Because I'm sure there are people out there who are curious too, right? Like the guy just had this incredibly historic June while also having a historically bad season with runners in scoring position. So how does that add up in June? So I looked it up. In the month of June, take out the walks and the hit batsmen because I'm just giving you hits and at-bats. Juan Soto was 3 for 22 with runners in scoring position in the month of June.
Yeah, that's not good.
So for what you're going to say and others are going to say about how great he was, how the Mets missed out on this opportunity with Soto hitting, Soto did hit. But he wasn't impactful the way they need him to be. And the way this entire team needs to be, because from top to bottom, including Juan Soto, they're terrible with runners in scoring position. That's been going on since March. It's continuing in June. The White Sox are the only team worse. And as much as I want to say, and I did say, don't worry, that'll change, I've gotten to the point here where I'm saying, why should I say that?
Yeah.
What is it based on other than sheer hope?
No, well, I think it's history more than hope. So Juan Soto, notwithstanding with runners in scoring position, hitting 136 that you just detailed there, 3 of 22. But I do believe that the hitting will find itself at some point. I don't know what that's going to take. Maybe it's just this off day, which is happening today. 13 straight games that they had. I hate to say that, God, we are just racing for the All-Star break. We need the All-Star break just so guys can mentally and physically reset. I'm not going there yet, but maybe that's what it's going to take. But I feel like with Lindor, with Soto, with Pete Alonso, with Nimmo, with McNeil, and even Beatty and some of these younger bats, eventually the bats turn. It just happens in baseball. The bigger concern, Evan, is the pitching staff, is the rotation and the bullpen. Maybe the bullpen who did a fair amount of good work over the weekend, but this starting rotation it feels in shambles right now. And there aren't easy solutions for that. There aren't just, you're going to get back to being who you were. Wasker Brazaban, who was, 2 whatever ERA, now it's 15 or whatever the heck.
And he set the game on fire Saturday night.
It's just so. And again, I don't know if that's injury. I don't know if that's fatigue. The bigger worry to me, the bats have sucked over the last 2 weeks, Evan. You're 100% right. And 4 runs against the lowly Pirates is embarrassing. But eventually bats wake up. They just do. These guys are good hitters. They're professionals. They've been doing it for a lot of years. The bats are going to be fine. It's the pitching that I'm starting to worry about. That's where the red flag, which last week it was on the bats. For me, it's really on the pitching right now. Because what's the answer?
Well, but that right there, you discussing why the pitching concerns you more than the offense, is why we got a real problem right now. Because we could literally sit here and fight about which is worse and which one can be saved quicker. Like, the pitching right now is a disaster. They don't get innings from their starters. Even when Carlos Mendoza tries, like through a rain delay with Paul Blackburn, it bites him in the face. Yep. So I'm not going to argue that the pitching's a problem. Now, there is a chance Sean Manaea could be back in a week and a half.
Right.
There's a chance Kodai Senga could be back in 3-4 weeks. But the offense, too, there really isn't anyone walking through that door unless you think bringing Jesse Winker back is going to change things. It comes down to they have to play better. Like Francisco Lindor has earned a free pass, rightfully so, because of what he did last year.
Right.
The guy was an MVP candidate player. He got hurt. He came back. He was a postseason hero. We all adore Francisco Lindor. We all love Francisco Lindor. So don't confuse criticism with lack of love. Mm-hmm. He has been atrocious for 4 weeks.
Well, it's interesting you say that because when I think you asked me, I said, nope, I don't want to do that. You asked Loogie. Loogie said, nope, I don't want to do that. I don't even know if we asked Sean because he's a Yankee fan. He would have trolled, but whatever. Moving Francisco Lindor off the leadoff spot was something that felt not even a shot at it. Don't even think about it. Maybe that's what needs to happen. Maybe the change up at the top of the order, it'll look, it worked last year, moving him there, and he had a historic season for him. It's not working this year. So Carlos Mendoza has got to realize that, this isn't ideal, but anything different than what you're doing is better than what you're doing. So, look, I was against it, but maybe he needs to move off of it now.
Since June 13th, which is the day that lives in infamy now in Met history, because everything was great, everything was wonderful. They had a big lead against the Tampa Bay Rays, and on that Friday night, Clay Holmes came out early, Mets blew a lead, and they've been the worst team in baseball since then. Since that moment, Francisco Lindor is hitting 172 with a 541 OPS. Ugh. The reality is he is the engine of this offense. He's the engine of this team, and the engine is broken down.
Right.
And he's not the only one. I'm not saying it's just Francisco Lindor. This is the problem. This is why on June 30th, I'd love to say into a microphone, don't worry, it's baseball, things change. The inherent problem with the Mets is everything's wrong. Like, the sky is falling. Right. I'm not just screaming it to sound like Frank the Tank. I'm saying it because if you sat there this weekend and you've sat there over the last 2.5 weeks, other than just wanting to believe because last year gave us so much, I'm having a tough time believing because what I'm watching is badness. I'm watching a bad rotation. I'm watching a bad bullpen. I'm watching a terrible offense that's been awful since day one in terms of hitting with runners in scoring position. I'm seeing a team that's bad at everything.
Yep.
So we could rip off each body part throughout this show. and focus on it and kill it and crush it and analyze it. But that's the problem. The problem is everything's wrong with this team. They've got one thing going for them. Time. That's it.
Yep.
It's only July 1st when they play their next game. They're still only a game out of first place. They're still in a wild card spot. Nobody could deny that. The standings are the standings. But here's the funny part. This is why we're all a bunch of hypocrites. Last year, we said the exact opposite. Who cares that they're a few games out?
Yeah.
Look at the way they're playing. If they keep this up, they'll make the playoffs. And it turned out to be the case.
Yeah, but
they kept playing that well.
Well, that's because they started so poorly.
Well, isn't that the opposite?
It is the exact opposite. But it just feels better when you start poorly and then get better.
Does it?
When you start really good and then all of a sudden it's like you suck and there's no hope in sight. You just know what is currently happening is going to continue. And so last year, currently playing well, it continued.
Yes.
Right?
Well, isn't that exactly what's happening, but the opposite? Yes, they're 11 games up on 500. Yes,
I
but
know.
the way they're playing, it's going to go away.
I hear you, but I know what you're saying. It is hypocritical in a sense because on par, you're kind of exactly in the same spot, but like you just don't see any path to being better. It doesn't feel like offensively, defensively, the rotation, the bat, it doesn't feel like any of it has any spark of getting right.
And you know what I thought? I genuinely thought this. I even tweeted it yesterday because rarely have I been tweeting mid-game, but I put it out there because I felt so strongly about it. I'm sitting there after Frankie Montas gives up the 5 runs in the first inning, in which he was a pitch away from getting out of it scoreless. A pitch away!
Right.
And, of course, to Brian Hayes, who's a superstar. Yes, Sean Morash and Yankee fans, trade for him. I mean, if you're a Yankee fan who watched this weekend, are you not lining up to say trade for Brian Hayes? Be damned the rest of his stats. Bring him in. He's Charlie's son. He kills the Mets. He looks like a superstar when he faces the Mets. But after Frankie gave up those 5 runs, I sat there very calmly. And I said very, very calmly to my wife and to my 2 kids, I said, they're going to win this game. This is the kind of game that sparks a team. They give up 5 runs in the first inning. It feels like all is lost. And this offense, which is so capable of breaking out of it, even though it's been 88 games and they haven't, this is where they get hot. And it took me about 25 minutes of the offense doing the cha-cha-cha where they go down 1, 2, 3 for me to realize it's not happening. So I think we're sitting here waiting for that moment, for that turn, for that victory that's going to change everything. And maybe for a second we thought it was 2 weekends ago in Philadelphia and they went on a Saturday. Or we thought it was the 2 wins against Atlanta. Now we'll look ahead to the Yankees and the Brewers and say maybe it's a game this week. But it feels like we're headed towards a train crash and we're trying to convince ourselves, don't worry, it's only July. But before you know it, if this doesn't stop soon, being a game and a half out of first place is going to turn into being 6.5 games out of first place. Being in a playoff spot's going to be, well, we're only 2.5 games out of a playoff spot. This is now a train that we're running down.
Right.
So as a Met fan, I want to share to you why things are changing, but was there anything you saw over these 3 days that makes you think tomorrow night against the red-hot Milwaukee Brewers, any of that crap's going to change?
No. Why would it? Especially with you're basically out of options in your bullpen. Like, what are you doing? You can't send anybody up and down unless somebody gets hurt. So, like, you're basically screwed. You're stuck with exactly what you have. Now, people will say, you got to trade. David Stearns has got to do X, Y, Z, but who's available?
There's no trade to be made today.
Exactly.
I get the scream and yell, all right, David Stearns, go save this team. I get it. There are 3 weeks before he can really do anything.
Yes. So and even when you get to that point, are there going to be willing partners? And I don't know about that.
I think they'll be willing partners. The question is, are there going to be players that are going to be worth the price that's out there? Right. And then you got to start to ask yourself, and I'm sure Met fans are going to be all over the map on this, in terms of, okay, what kind of player do you want? Is it starting pitching depth? Is it a bat? Is it a big bat? Is it a relief arm, or is it basically all of the above? But the trade season, we're not there yet.
No.
It's June 30th.
But you can't help but think about it given the ineptitude of this lineup right now. You can't help but think about it.
Now, one thing I don't want to do is just raise my hands up and say there's nothing we can do. So I will offer you an idea to save the New York Mets. It's an extreme idea. It was inspired by many things. It was inspired by Tommy Lugauer. It was inspired by New York Yankees history.
What?
It was inspired by many things. And we are going to present to you a very real, smart way, desperate way to save the New York Mets. That's right, inspired by Tommy Lugauer and New York Yankees history.
Is this positive Tommy, negative Tommy, or 2022 Tommy?
It's positive Tommy and New York Yankees history has inspired an idea we will present to you in the next 15 minutes to save the New York Mets. We'll get to your phone calls at 888-808-1019.